It's a post-game instant reaction live stream here inside the vault. It's technically the 28th of November, so I would say happy Thanksgiving. Oh, of course I'm going to say happy Thanksgiving regardless, but it is 12:20 in the morning on Friday the 28th. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone, including you, Sarah. We haven't caught up all day long because we were not live at noon earlier, and we have a lot to discuss, obviously, as it relates to very, very disappointing, and I'm sure frustrating on a number of levels from a fandom perspective, loss, which snaps a 5-game win streak for the Ravens dating back over a month. Sarah, they are now back to 500, 6-6, after a 32-14. Is collapse the right word? That's what we have in the title, at least for right now. We'll get into all of that and more in terms of divvying up blame, speaking to what went wrong for the Ravens tonight, and for the Bengals. They get Joe Burrow back, Sarah, and they obviously have to win out to give themselves a chance, but that's really neither here nor there. For the Ravens, this is a closing stretch that began, as we know, today as it looks ahead, and the favorable stretch is in the rearview mirror with games that, it's interesting. Throughout the last 5 weeks, it almost felt like there was a hodgepodge worth of setbacks and trends that almost came into the form of a perfect storm tonight and reared its ugly head, and they weren't able to overcome it. And I'll set you up with this as you give your opening remarks. They turned the ball over 5 times. They were 3 for 10 on third down. They lost the time of possession battle badly, 38 minutes and 46 seconds. Cincinnati possessed it to the Ravens 21 minutes and 14 seconds. And it's almost like, man, need we say any more? We will, but you really have to start there. Those are 3 areas that really tell the story.
You can't win with 5 turnovers. You can't do it. Everybody knows it. And this was probably the worst game in the Lamar Jackson era, offensively speaking. The defense kept trying to hold on and let the offense get back into things come the second half or whatnot. But the offense came back out in the second half, went 3 and out, and then there were more turnovers. You just can't do it. And so, yeah, I mean, you don't have all the terrible offensive games in front of you, but you just have a gut feeling based off of what you've been watching. This has got to be one of the worst offensive performances in the Lamar Jackson era. And it was one of the worst games from Lamar himself. And that's kind of what led everything, that, he was inaccurate and he held himself accountable pretty well in the post-game press conference. I mean, he wasn't dodging anything. He was inaccurate. He was letting some passes sail. He had the fumbles. There was one interception. We can break all of them down, but Lamar's just not playing like Lamar. That being said, bringing it up in context of the last 5 games, I just don't, to me, this is a game that you flush. The offense has obviously been struggling to get its legs under it. And in those last 5 games, Lamar looked much more injured than he looked tonight. He was asked if there was some mechanical errors for why he was missing passes. He said, no, I think that's what it was. I think that he just wasn't as disciplined with his mechanics, but he did look more healthy. He was running more. Still not like 100% Lamar, but certainly running more. Todd Monken called on him for some read options and stuff like that. So I don't see a pattern with this offensive game versus the previous 4 or 5 where they've been struggling but have done enough, because this offenses that had been struggling were playing clean football. They just couldn't move it as well as they had. I felt like we were seeing some movement, but then they weren't playing clean football. So to me, there's not like this overall pattern. To me, this is an offensive game that you flush. Like 5 turnovers. They had 1 turnover during their 5-game winning streak. That was what powered them to win. The defense was playing so well. All they had to do was play clean football. And then you come in against the Bengals and you know that they score a lot. But if the Ravens had played clean, a lot of times they play these other offenses that score a lot, and it's almost like they get so nervous. I gotta start scoring. No, just play clean football. And the defense was playing well. And if the Ravens continued to the OPI call was dumb. But if you don't have plays like that, you don't have these turnovers, you still could have won this game. So to me, horrible offensive performance. One of the worst I've seen from Lamar himself, but it's one that you flush. And it's too bad that you have to flush it. It takes 10 days to flush this one, so you get your next opportunity again. I'm not reading too much into this because I just don't see the Ravens offense turning it over 5 times in one game when they've had 1 turnover in the last 5 wins.
This is sometimes why it gets fluky in division. Those 5 turnovers forced, or whatever you want to call it, coughed up by the Ravens, forced by Cincinnati. They had 10 as a team entering the night. They finished with 5 in one game. I mean, sometimes it gets really, really fluky. You have the numbers with Lamar right now. What hasn't been a fluke is that he's struggled. He has struggled for weeks on end now, and he's had his moments. And guess what? He had his moments tonight. You've already mentioned a couple of them related to some of that speed that was encouraging to see. There were also other times where you thought, okay, yeah, he is banged up. And then there were also other times where, like, man, as he said himself post-game, he's just got to be better. He's just got to be more consistent. That's actually the word he used, consistent. Listen to this.
Can't call it. I really can't. I don't want to make nothing up. I feel like we was doing things pretty good on the field. We got first downs. We drove the ball down the field sometimes. And then a turnover happened, a mishap, here and there. We just got to be on the same page, be consistent. Like I just said, that's the biggest key right now, being consistent throughout the game, first quarter to fourth quarter, and not putting our defense on the field as much as we did.
Okay, Sarah. So here are the final numbers that you tallied up here. Again, it's a forgettable game for Lamar and this entire offense. He was 17 of 32. That's a completion percentage of 53.1 for 246 yards, no touchdowns, a pick, 2 fumbles, and a quarterback rating of 65.4. Maybe we should just go in order of the turnovers in terms of kind of evaluating that, if you can.
I just didn't know if you want any more Lamar reaction before we go through each one.
Well, I just think it kind of led in. Yeah, I mean, we could do both. If you want to do that, I think, from an inaccuracy standpoint, I can count off the top of my head, and I have notes on them. There were at least 4 blatant misfires where he had the ample time and a pocket that was clean. Whereas he said, you just got to make those. He says he's making them in practice. You believe him, obviously, because he has throughout the course of his career. But that has not been the case of late. I had a blatant misfire to Mark Andrews. What about the one on third and 10 where he missed Zay Flowers badly? That forced a punt for Jordan Stout deep in their own end zone, and Jordan handled it admirably, as he's been doing throughout his all-pro caliber season. At one point, a layup to Keaton Mitchell was missed. That was spiked. I mean, you had several of them where you were just like, whoa, that's like so far from Lamar. So if you want to kind of start there in terms of the accuracy or lack thereof, that was extremely uncharacteristic, but it has been popping up more often than not of late.
Yeah. So, and that's why he is asking for more consistency. So literally, he must have said the word consistent like over a dozen times. I got to play consistent. Can't have the turnovers. We got to be consistent. We're putting our defense on the field too much. Can't have it. He asked for his level of frustration. He's like, level of frustration, I don't know. I'm ticked off, was his quote. He said, quote, I feel like I missed throws. I don't miss those. I got to be consistent. Said it again. I don't miss those throws in practice, so I shouldn't miss them in the game. He asked if the series of injuries that he suffered has contributed to his poor play tonight. No, I just got to be more consistent. I got to make those throws. So, he held himself accountable. John Harbaugh, this was a funny quote. He was asked if Lamar Jackson is fully healthy. He goes, fully healthy? Yeah, he's fully healthy to play. Absolutely. I don't know that that's what fully healthy means, but yeah, Lamar's definitely in a rut. I think this was the worst that we've seen since he's returned, with all those turnovers, the 2 fumbles, the interception. But he hasn't thrown a touchdown pass in 3 games. It's unfortunate because, he didn't play well, but the few times he did have some nice throws, then it was turnovers by his teammates. The deep one to, or the one to Isaiah Likely. Isaiah fumbles it at the goal line. The one to Zay Flowers, I think it was a weak OPI. I think that players do that 20 times a game and don't get called. The little push off really didn't make an impact on him getting open. So I thought that was weak. That was a nice throw by Lamar. So the times that Lamar did, was on the money. They had those plays on the other end that his teammates couldn't come up with, or like the deep passes to Tez Walker. Some of those were right on the money. He couldn't reel it in. There was some good defensive plays. So Lamar's in a rut for sure. And this one probably is the worst of the season. Again, one of the worst I've ever seen him play. And at the same time, I don't feel myself panicking like at all. I feel like Lamar's going to get himself out of the rut. I think it'll eventually come. I predicted that it was going to happen again in this game because it's the worst defense in the league. Let's just remind you that this Ravens offense only put up less than 20 points against a defense that is 31st in rush yards allowed, 32nd in points allowed, 32nd in overall yards allowed, 32nd in pass yards allowed, 32nd in points per drive, 32nd in yards per drive. It's not a good defense. And they kept saying on the broadcast that they've been playing better as of late. And that's fine. But the Ravens shot themselves in the foot with all these turnovers. They were moving the ball. They were. And just over and over and over again, just the weirdest turnovers and, the calls and all of that set them back. I personally am looking forward to the rematch in 2 weeks because I think the Ravens can play much better than they did tonight. I think Lamar's going to be ticked. And when I say 2 weeks, I mean in 2 games because it's obviously the 10-day break. So I'm excited for that rematch because I think the offense can put a much better product on the field.
They better. They better. I mean, tonight was, you kind of alluded to it a couple times now. This might be one of the most lackluster offensive performances in the last 8 years,
Mm-hmm.
and if it's not the most, it's on a short list, I would think, of candidates. And a lot of it starts and ends with Lamar. And you appreciate him taking accountability as he did. You also appreciate John Harbaugh getting up there, which he doesn't often do, and blames the 5 turnovers on himself as he did at the podium. I don't know if I've ever heard that from him, ever.
Which is funny. Everybody wants accountability from John, but in this case, like I'm not putting those turnovers on him. Sorry.
I was like
John, take accountability for other things, not this point, not this. Like
I was, man.
You're not Isaiah Likely, like fumbling the ball at the goal line. Like you're not Zay Flowers, taking a hit at the end of the game and it popping out. You're not Lamar, who's like, oh, last second, I don't want to throw that to Zay Flowers and bring it down. It slips out of your hand. Like you preach, you coach, you do the drills, you do everything you're supposed to do with the turnovers. There's a lot of things that you could put on John Harbaugh's shoulders. This is what you take accountability for? This?
The irony, man. The irony in that is really striking.
Yeah.
Just one note before we get back to Lamar, and we're going to go turnover by turnover breakdown. Maybe that's causing eye rolls all throughout our audience right now, but we got to do it. Those that were criticizing Todd Monken after the first half left me baffled. And the criticism from some that were in my mentions was aimed at Derrick Henry's usage, just 5 carries in the first half. And I thought to myself, man, that's really nitpicking, because while you want more from Derrick on paper, especially when a couple of his chunk yards tonight, including that first half touchdown, led you to believe that he's going to have a big, big night. And the numbers showed you that he did have a very productive night. But I know that it left some to be desired, left you wanting more out there in the fan base. You got to remember, this is an offense that had 3 turnovers. You already mentioned, Sarah, the fluky OPI that Terry, I'm forgetting his last name, but he's the rules analyst, McCauley, I think, for the NBC crew, says was totally tic-tac, whatever you want to call it. That wiped Zay's touchdown off the board. And then at least 3 misfires that I've already referenced from Lamar in the first half. We're going to sit here and blame Todd Monken? Come on. I'm talking about the first half, Josh. I'm talking about the first half because I couldn't see eye to eye, one iota, with anybody that was pointing a finger at Todd Monken after 2 quarters of football. And quite frankly, after 4 quarters. I don't know what was up in the end there, down 2 scores, handing it off to Rasheen Ali, but the game was out of hand. So this was on Lamar. This was on the players. And it was an epic failure from an offensive standpoint. And I think we should probably get into turnover by turnover in terms of how this happened chronologically, Sarah, beginning with a complete breakdown on the right-hand side of the Ravens offensive line early on in this game. Terrible by 77. And what's Rodgers' number? I can't remember, but Roger
70.
Rosengarten. What's that? 70. Thank
70.
you.
Yep.
Those 70s, man, the 77 and 70, they blew up this play. Sure, you can criticize Lamar for the ball handling here, but he was on an island. Ultimately, Cincinnati actually did not come away with anything because of a great defensive stand, which led to a turnover on downs from Zach Orr's defense. But obviously a terrible way to start. But again, the Ravens did not pay the price, at least in the form of giving up points as a result. 4
tries the Bengals had from the 2-yard line. And I'm like, dang, that's because we were having Thanksgiving dinner here with a lot of friends, and everybody's asking me what they should do with their fantasy. And I'm like, I was in terms of some of them had Bengals players on their fantasy team. And I'm like, I just don't know who the Ravens defense is yet. Like, they have been playing a lot better since the trades, but like, I just don't know about like a high powered offense, how they would do. And I thought they were sensational. I mean, they start out with that. They've got the Bengals have 4 tries from the 2-yard line and they stop them. They had a very bend but don't break mentality, which they've really had since they've made those trades. And I feel like when they started actually breaking is when Nate Wiggins went out. We can get into that a little bit later, kind of break that down. But yeah, it's just your common everyday stunt that was happening on the right side of the offensive line. And Roger Rosengarten and Fa'alele couldn't pick it up. And then Lamar was trying to do Lamar things and wasn't protecting the ball. I think he was trying to get himself to pass or get rid of it or whatever. Instead, it got knocked out by Joseph Asai. And so that was the first disaster. But you're like, okay, defense saved the day. They can now like settle down and get locked in. But then this one happened. Lamar hits Isaiah Likely on the go, and Isaiah has some great yardage after the catch, and he's trying to get in. And this is this goes back to when Zay Flowers in the AFC Championship game against the Kansas City Chiefs. They always say, don't like extend the ball at the 1-yard line, because that's like the last ditch effort for the defenders. They're going to come in and they're going to start punching. They're going to come swiping. They're coming after that ball. You'd rather have the ball at the 1-yard line than you kind of like extend out and whatnot. So unless it's absolutely do or die, no more time on the clock, like just protect the ball and try to run in. And so, and then I do hate this rule where you fumble it out of the back of the end zone and it turns from a touchdown into a turnover, a touchback. And now they get the ball at the 20 or whatever it is now. And so that just feels too harsh that you're fumbling at the goal line and it goes out a certain way. And now it's a turnover basically. So this is the second disaster that went down, and you're like, can they overcome this? And if it had stopped there, they probably could have, but it didn't stop there, Bobby. It went to this next disaster. This wasn't a turnover, but a disaster. You want this one?
Yeah. We might as well just kind of keep going here, eye for eye. But yeah, I mean, just to piggyback off of your commentary on the Isaiah. I mean, you're right. It was reminiscent of the AFC Championship gaffe from Zay. We'll get to Zay in just a bit. He obviously deserves a piece of the pie here in the blame game. But man, what a nightmarish season for Isaiah. And you appreciate that he did 99.9% of the work, including a nasty hurdle right milliseconds before this mistake. That hurdle was filthy. And you're thinking to yourself, this is the breakout game for 80, right? Between missing the first month of the season with the foot, and then Lamar goes out the second that he returns, and then the inability to kind of get involved in the offense, at least directly from a pass catching standpoint, all of which comes in the contract year. You hurt for the guy. And so he ended up getting some other chunk yardage, and he was heavily involved in the offense tonight. But you're right. This was an absolute backbreaker, as was this. No question. This was out of the Ravens' control. Zay Flowers, based on the officials' judgment here in this moment, in a bang-bang play, ends up pushing off for the OPI. I'm saying pushing off with air quotes. It was really subtle. It was Is it ticky tack or tic tac?
Ticky tack.
Ticky tack. Whatever it is, this was tough. This was really tough. It wiped six off the board.
Is a breath mint.
That's right. Tic Tacs, TIC, right? Versus TICKY, ticky tack. This was brutal. This was backbreaking. This was brutal. It wipes 6 off. It was a beautiful ball by Lamar Jackson. And so as much as you want to talk about, what he hasn't done numbers wise over the last few weeks, Sarah, this was fluky. That Mark Andrews drop in the end zone a week ago against the Jets, fluky, right? Devontae Walker, you already mentioned, the 2 plays that he was kind of involved in, one of which was a Lamar overthrow, but I think Devontae probably could have run that route a little bit more intensely. And then, hey, he just didn't survive the ground on the second one, which is a bang play, and it's tough. And the DB, by the way, I think it was a Dax Hill in on that. Heck of a play by Justice's brother. I think he was in on that, but all that more. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't wipe away what was a really rough night for Lamar. But those numbers obviously would have looked a little bit different had they had things go his way a little bit.
A lot different. Just think about this. If Lamar has that strip sack and it's, the right hand side kind of breaks down and then the defense holds, it's like, oh, okay, well, all they did was give up 3 points. It's 6-7. You still have the lead. Isaiah doesn't fumble here. You're now 14-3. And then they also got points off of that, right? Off of that Isaiah Likely fumble when they got the ball back. So that went to 9. But if he is able to score there, who knows if they're able to get the 9? And then with Zay Flowers, all of a sudden you're talking about a 21 to either a 6 or a 21-9 game. And so it's like, you'd kind of be like, well, Lamar's inaccurate on some of these passes, but he's also, nailed that long one down the right sideline or left sideline to Zay Flowers, and he had that one to Isaiah Likely. So yeah, he's still getting his feet underneath him, but he looks better. He looks more comfortable. He's running more, and he did hit those long passes. Then all of a sudden you're thinking, okay, well, he's still working through it, but at least they're still producing as he works through it. But because it just kept piling up, you can't look at those 2 plays and be like, oh, Lamar had like an up and down night. No, it was just a bad night. It was just a bad night with those 2 plays. And then it continued. Here was this one where he was trying to argue that it was an incomplete pass. On this one, I do think the refs got it right. I think they got it wrong on the Zay Flowers OPI, but on this one, they got it wrong. He clearly was trying to take back his pass. He wanted to stop it. He even explained afterwards that he originally was going to throw it to Zay, and then he saw a Mike linebacker in Tampa too, and he didn't want to throw a turnover. So he wanted to pull back his pass. And so as they explain it, there's no longer a tuck rule. The ball is clearly pointing down. He wanted to take back his pass, and it slipped out as he did so. So to me, it wasn't an incomplete pass. I think they got this one right. But it's another one of those just unfortunate ones. It wasn't off target on this one. It wasn't like a bad decision. It was just you saw something last minute. You were trying to prevent a turnover, and it slips out of your hands, and it's a turnover anyway. And so I appreciate that he argued it. I appreciate that he tried to argue it. He was so confident. He stayed on the field, but I think the refs got that one right.
So what are we at? 3 now? 4 brings us to the.
That's 3, which doesn't include the OPI, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And so that brings us to number 4, which was the tipped ball interception. Isaiah Likely found himself as a pass blocker, which is not what you want. I get it. Tight ends are asked to chip and help out as much as possible, but you don't want Isaiah Likely on Myles Murphy. That's a mismatch. I'm not saying it was directly related to Isaiah. I'm not sure. I don't think he should be blamed solely for his role in the play. Quite honestly, I remember seeing us.
Blown up.
He did.
To your point, like people would say, well, Monken shouldn't have had him in that position in the first place.
Correct. I think Lamar maybe. I remember seeing the north to south NBC camera angle. There just wasn't a whole lot there. I think that could have been one of those ones where you just take a sack and you live to fight another down.
Really? I thought Mark Andrews was open. I thought that would have been a touchdown.
On the right-hand side, was he?
Yeah, he was like, he had space. If Lamar was able to get over, like, I think that would have been a touchdown.
I wonder if we're talking about the same, because I remember kind of thinking, man, I did not see a lot open in that angle that I was specifically looking at, but I also don't remember seeing Mark on that specific camera angle. So who
Okay.
knows what
Might be thinking of a different play.
maybe we're not on the same page on that one, but Josh says Andrews looked open. But anyway.
Yeah, and Jonas Schaefer has it right here. He's like, Mark Andrews would have scored, but Isaiah likely couldn't hold his block.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, regardless, it goes down as an interception in the 4th turnover of the game, and you're just thinking, okay, on the check down, was it on the right? Was he on the right hand side as Sully? Is it Suleiman? Hopefully, I'm not botching that. But anyway, we can't play the tape, so we'll have to go back and look at it in the coming days. But that was turnover number 4.
That was turnover number 4, and here's number 5. It was the Zay Flowers fumble. The defense had just gotten a turnover. Travis Jones had fallen on the fumble, and there wasn't a lot going for them at this point. Even if they had scored here, they probably weren't going to, mount a comeback. But it just was like, you can't make this stuff up. Like like when it rains, it pours. They couldn't stop the bleeding from the very first quarter with the strip sack to all the way in the 4th quarter with 4:15 left and Zay Flowers fumble. They never could stop the bleeding. And it's just, and that's why I say, like, this isn't like, look, the offense hasn't been playing great really since Miami, which is what, a month ago now.
I think they have not had a productive, meaning Ravens standard productiveness. That's like my grading system since the second half in Miami.
Yeah. So
I really do
like
believe
a month ago.
That's about a month ago.
Yeah. But what had saved them, because the defense has been playing well enough, is they were playing clean football. And so, like, this is why I flush it. Like, let's get back to playing clean football. Lamar's looking healthier. And it, like, it's crazy. And people are like, what makes you think that the Ravens are going to turn it around? And it's Lamar. Like, I know that Lamar just played probably his worst game since he put on a Ravens jersey. I'm aware of that. But I still think he can turn it around. I really do.
Well, so gives you so can we maybe unpack that a little bit? It's the second time you've said it so far through the first half of the show. We got to get to a read and some super chats on the defensive side of the ball. So let's not go crazy on it. But so we both know that this has been a really uniquely challenging stretch for him.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of which is related to, at least we thought, and maybe still think, health or lack thereof. A lot of issues in pass protection, albeit the last 2 weeks certainly hasn't been the case. There have been certainly some plays, much like the strip sack tonight, where there was a failure and put Lamar in no man's land there, and he's got to secure the ball better. We know that. But for the most part, this offensive line's gotten the job done in terms of what's acceptable and what the expectation is for 2 weeks, really twice within a 5-day stretch. Knowing that the favorable stretch is now behind them, which was about 5 weeks, going into divisional play, and then, of course, the likes of New England and Green Bay, and knowing that this has been a multi-week thing now, where is that confidence kind of stemming from?
Since he stepped on the field in 2018, how he's played, and knowing how injured he's been. We've seen it. We talked about it. You've seen it. He's been so injured. And my point is he looked better tonight. He looked more healthy, way more healthy than he looked last week against the Jets. Way more healthy. And it became one of those fluky games with 5 turnovers. I just don't anticipate, with how clean they've been playing, for that to keep up. Like, again, I say this all the time. Like, life happens in clusters, and you're not going to have a 5 turnover game every week. And Lamar Jackson's going to get healthy. Sure, he can have another setback or something, or he could get injured. Like, like, if he gets re-injured on something, like, I can't control that, right? But if he continues to get healthy, he looked more spry. There was a slide in there, whatever, but he was taking.
He looked good on that. He looked. I'm with you there. He looked better tonight, and that slide was not only wise, but some of the burst and willingness and ability to run in that moment was encouraging.
He looked better, number one. And number two, not only has he played clean football since he returned from injury, but let's just go back to last year. He had the best touchdown to turnover ratio in NFL history. He played in like the 4 turnovers he had last year. None of them were on him. Playoffs are a different story. And we can talk about the playoffs later. But in the regular season, Lamar Jackson has played clean football. So this is an aberration to Lamar in the regular season, having that many turnovers. Postseason, there's been a bit more. Regular season, he's played extremely clean football, and he's getting healthier. And if Lamar Jackson plays clean football and he's getting healthier, why wouldn't you have confidence that they would turn it around? That to me is.
I think there's a lot of reasons, though, because when you look at the favorable stretch of 5 weeks, you're right. They played clean football, and the reason why they won those games was defense and special teams with timely Lamar play. Mm-hmm. Right? Is that a fair way of kind of summarizing it in a vacuum? The last month plus, I'm concerned about not only his health, but the likes of others like a Nate Wiggins, even though it's not something serious. We saw, I think we'll get to the defensive side of the ball in just a bit, but we saw how different Joe Burrow attacked this team when Nate went down. And I'm not saying that's going to be something that's commonplace for the foreseeable future, because Harbaugh did get up there and say that it's not serious. I'm just not confident that they can put 3 phases of football together in this closing stretch. Could still see them making the postseason, but I don't share that same level of confidence in you. You're right. It's an aberration. This is you've never seen this before to this extended period of adversity for Lamar in the regular season in 8 years. I wonder if they'll be able to dig out of it.
Well, let's see December football. Well, we're going to find out. We're going to see December football where Lamar has performed well.
What did Kyle say? They remember what you do in December.
Kyle said the same thing. And I understand that Nate Wiggins went down. I also know that it's not long-term serious, according to John Harbaugh. The defense played really well tonight, really well. And if they hadn't had 5 turnovers, it would have looked even better. And so I'm more bought into the Ravens after this defense than I was even the last couple of weeks, because it was the Jets and it was the Browns. But for the terrible position they were put in time and time again, I thought the defense played really well. And I think that they can continue that trajectory. And I think that Lamar will turn it around. So
my one thing, we're going to get into it as soon as we can get on the other side of this read and super chats, is in recent weeks, we've seen a lot of pressure created by this defense. And while they bent, it did not break tonight, and were great on third down at times and turned Cincinnati over on downs a couple times, that pressure disappeared to the extent of what we've seen in recent weeks. And if I'm a betting man over the next 5 weeks, I wonder if that becomes yet again an Achilles heel, as it's been not only in the postseason, but at times in high leverage situations. But we'll get to that in just a bit. We want to say thanks to Manta Sleep for the continued support of our program. They've been exclusively sponsoring our post-game live streams all season long. And guys, we are under a month out from Christmas. The holiday season is here. We hope you guys had a fantastic Thanksgiving with you and yours. And with you and yours? Does that make any? It's 12:54. Let me just continue to read. Discount code VAULT10, VAULT10 will get you 10% off your next purchase. And if you go to mantasleep.com, which we have linked in the show notes, for those of you watching live right now, we have it linked as a pinned comment in our live chat. You can check out all the different sleep masks that they have available to you. And they all give you the true 100% blackout for deeper sleeps. You've got C-shaped eye cups for unbeatable side sleep comfort. 0 pressures applied to your eyelids or lashes. Advanced materials and ventilation for unmatched breathability is built into all of these masks. They don't stop there. You've got other little features like sleep earplugs, white noise machines, sleep add-ons, you name it. Bundles are great for the holidays as well. And of course, stocking stuffers. There's just countless of them. So VAULT10, VAULT10 will get you 10% off your next purchase at Manta Sleep. And we want to say thanks to them for their continued support. And as always, when you support the show, when you support our brand sponsors, you're directly supporting the show. Let's get to some super chats on the defensive side of the ball. I'll let you take this one from BK.
BK says Lamar cooked, but unfortunately, it was the worst dish at the Thanksgiving table that turns your stomach just by the sight of it. Whole unit stunk.
Captain writes, I don't know how to judge Lamar. He looked better, but he should have had 3 touchdowns, 1 fumble, touchdown, 1 OPI, touchdown, and 1 batted ball touchdown. And that was 100% a touchdown to Andrews if Likely blocks sloppy play. Dreams is here.
If Likely doesn't fumble, Zay. Did you just do this one? Or is this, I guess they're saying the same things. If Likely doesn't fumble, Zay doesn't get called for the OPI. That's 28 points on the board, and we basically are down by a point. Tez dropped 2 bombs that should have been caught. Lamar was off target.
What's up, JL? If I didn't know better, I would have sworn based on tonight's game that the Ravens' record was 3-8. Outrageous. And again, poor use of the run game. Quion's here.
Says they made the 32nd ranked defense look credible. This team would probably make the Titans look like a playoff team.
And another one, Lamar has 0 touchdowns in 3 games, and the Steelers come to town on my 30th birthday with the offense playing like this, shaking my head. No faith at this point. Happy early 30th, brother. Whiplash 4, and by the way, we did just break down a couple minutes ago. Maybe you guys were watching or listening, where Lamar's numbers could have looked obviously a little bit different had Mark Andrews caught that pass, and Devonta's reeled in 1, and the OPI not been called, but I guess you can do that on every given play in the NFL. Whiplash 4 is here.
Says it feels like the entire offense is in a funk since the Dolphins. Lamar's play, meh, but I feel like we've also seen like 5 or 6 drop TDs over the past few weeks, plus all the stuff today. Very odd.
ATS Travels has become the newest VAULTRON. It's a channel membership for ATS. We appreciate you, brother. And Dreams is here. So Derrick Henry finally gets going, and yet he was barely on the field. And a bad Bengals offensive line, and yet we only get 1 sack. Absolute trash. Joseph Osai, they were making him look like an all-pro out there today, Sarah.
Oh, yeah, he was all over the place.
Richard's here tonight.
Bobby, that's why I've backed you up, he says. The offensive line made the Bengals defense look elite. Lamar doesn't look good, injured or not. Defense plays a legit offense and gets torched. Looks like last year all over again.
Travesty says, must have spilled gravy on the football. I refuse to believe Lamar isn't battling injuries to try to keep us afloat. He doesn't look like himself. John Wayne is here.
John says, Lamar ain't the guy. Monken is terrible. Harbs is too comfortable. He isn't disciplining guys anymore. Likely should have not played another snap. Just so many issues.
Come on, John. Quasi France says, celebrating 1 month of channel membership, by the way. So thank you. And thanks to everybody, including John, for dropping in super chats tonight. We appreciate you guys for being with us. Quasi, great content per usual. Bobby and Sarah, not our year. We're not elite on either side of the ball. Lamar is not healthy nor playing well. Next year, Quasi's mailing it in so soon.
Season. I said flush the game. He's ready to flush the rest all of December.
What up, Steve-O?
Steve-O says the Bengals defense is the worst DVOA rating since 1978, and Lamar and company scored 14 points. That's just pathetic, he says. I don't believe you can fix the offense in a season. Also, number 80, that contract is slipping away each week.
You know, Steve, it's crazy that, like we talked about with our Bengals guest this week, Sarah Marshall-Kramsky, yes, they are flirting with the worst defense of all time in terms of DVOA, as he's mentioning here. But Marshall said, hey, they've actually been playing average the last couple of weeks, including against a high-powered Patriots offense, which was a loss for Cincinnati. And then you consider the fact that when you get your star franchise quarterback back in the lineup for the first time since week 2, you wonder what kind of effect that had on them as well. And then, by the way, you add in the divisional familiarity, some flukiness, and there you go, part of the result tonight. Ravens Doc says, never seen Lamar look this bad. 5 turnovers is terrible. Defense is average. More runs need to be called. Since he had one of the worst defenses of all time, playoffs are in doubt. Shaking my head. The AFC is wide open. Dark Thunder.
Fans were booing throughout the night and left early with Steve Bisciotti in attendance.
Captain says, Bobby, that batted ball was a touchdown. I think we discussed that a little bit with Mark Andrews. John Wayne is back.
Says maybe if we spend some equity and get a great offensive line, maybe, just maybe, we win a Super Bowl with LJ. If we don't fix the offensive line, we will never see a ring anytime soon.
Ravori Sports. Emory Jones finally saw the field, rotating with Andrew Voorhees, while number 77 continues to receive every snap. It's frustrating. So, yes, there was a rotation going on tonight between Voorhees and Emory Jones. Emory was called for a pre-snap penalty at one point tonight, and I believe he actually missed his first block on his first snap as a pro. Good to see him out there, though, getting some reps. But, yes, it was left guard, Sarah, not a right guard rotation for Todd Monken's offensive line, George Warhop's offensive line. Richard's here.
Says he's advocating himself as a mod again. He says there's a lot of spamming going on.
I do think Richard would be a good one. Maybe we can talk about that. Juice Man Vaughn says, this was the type of game where I can't want it more than the Ravens. 5 turnovers are self-inflicted. On to the next game. Captain's here.
It really wasn't a bad offensive game to me. We just had bad turnovers and a bad OPI every time we had momentum.
JL says, bless you, Sarah, for your positive beliefs. And John with his 3rd super chat of the evening.
John says, sorry, Sarah, don't think LJ the guy. Wish we would have drafted Sanders. I mean, I do too, but not to replace LJ.
Yeah.
He says LJ is not the guy. His legs are not there anymore. And without them, he is average at best. I am sorry.
All right.
Are you sorry, John?
John saw Shador beat the Raiders with Myles Garrett in all-world mode, and he's ready for him to take over the franchise. Isaiah says, bad way to end the night, but happy Thanksgiving, flock. Cover 0, predictability, and abandoning the run kills us. Glad you mentioned it, Isaiah. They did struggle for answers with cover 0 at times tonight. And I thought on that the second Joseph Asai sack, I thought that a couple folks within the offensive line community, including he's always on the McAfee show. And of course, now I forget his name. I'll get it in a second here. He clearly broke it down why that is not on the offensive line and more about how Lamar had to get protection in there pre-snap. Didn't.
You're talking about Kurt?
Well, that was one. He talked about it, but in this case, it was actually a former NFL lineman. Kurt, as you know, is the former backup QB.
Yeah.
Maybe the live chat can help me out as well. But anyway, that was one where Lamar left himself in no man's land, and that's on him based on one of the segments that I saw. So good stuff, Isaiah. And that brings us to another one from BK.
BK says, when was the last time you saw Lamar make a mistake early on and then self-regulate himself or teammates? His body language speaks volumes negatively, and the rest of the unit follows subconsciously.
AQ Shipley is who I was referring to. Good breakdown. Maybe we can add it into Friday's show. Quasi. Okay. I had it the first time. Pronounced Quasi. Thank you, Quasi. Yes, the season is over. We win the division and get the 4 seed. We lose to the Chiefs or the Chargers at home. We survive that. We get crushed in New England or Denver. It's done. So, Quasi, just so you know, Pittsburgh, just to play devil's advocate here, Pittsburgh has Buffalo this weekend. And they only have a half-game lead right now over the Ravens. And the Ravens haven't even played Pittsburgh yet. So it is wide open. I mean, you can think what you want. I'm the one that claimed they were cooked a month ago. So anything can happen. But here I am defending them now, right?
What a bizarro world we've just entered.
just in the spirit of devil's advocate, because
Bobby Trossett is on here defending the Ravens against the Steelers. Okay.
In the spirit of objectivity and devil's advocate for Quasi here, just based on the math and the way this AFC is looking, I thought I'd throw that out there.
Pretty good there, Bobby.
Should we unload any offensive notes before we shift over?
Yeah. Are we totally done with offense? Let me see here. I guess that's what you're asking. Let me see here. Oh, just as we're talking about offense, if we want to put in some positive stuff, hold on. Where did I put that one? Did I not put it in here? Here. I put it way too far down. The Keaton Mitchell touchdown. Woo. First of all, I did like the play calling on this drive. Derrick Henry was running quite a bit. And anyway, they do a little change of pace, bring in Keaton Mitchell. Was that a toss? I can't remember if he tossed it out to the right.
Yeah, beautiful.
Okay, he tossed out to the right. And I saw all that room. And I was like, touchdown. Then Zay Flowers made it even more certain when he just pancaked his guy. And then once he was down, he tried to get up, and Zay's like, what do you think you're doing getting up? Stay down there. Pushes him right back down. Little old Zay gets pushed around and hit so much, he's got to give it back every once in a while. So there was some positive things, but I wanted to give a shout out to Keaton and Zay on this run because that was a thing of beauty.
Saw Zay got up over 20 miles an hour on that one, according to Next Gen Stats. You're right. Zay just acting bigger than he is, right? And doing the dirty work. And the great blend that was included there by Todd Monken of his Thunder, Derrick Henry, and his Lightning, Keaton Mitchell. So good stuff there. Mark Andrews, yet again, goes for the record books. He's now the all-time leader in catches, also passing Derek Mason as he did not all that long ago in a different category, which was receiving yards. So good for him in that department. In that same historic department, DeAndre Hopkins, a future first ballot Hall of Famer, reeled in his 1,000th career catch. He continues to be reliable, Sarah, and timely, particularly on third down as a chain mover and somebody that is so technical, so savvy, such an effective separator still at 33 years old. We saw that double move put on a DB last week against the Jets just 5 days ago. So while the numbers won't tell the full story, if you just go look at what he's done throughout the full season, we know that he's been a great savvy vet for them, albeit a small sample size. So hopefully that comes up big for this team when they desperately need him at some point in December and January.
Hey, and we talked about this real quickly just in passing with the super chat that came up, but we did indeed see that change along the offensive line. We had Coach Evans on the show on Wednesday. Man, that was yesterday. It feels like so long ago. Or Tuesday. We had him on Tuesday. And I asked him, because he's been studying all the film more than the rest of us, more than most people listening. And he agreed that it should be Voorhees that should be taken out over Fa'alele, even though we see those low light real plays from Fa'alele. He, as bad as he's been, in Coach Evans' opinion, and in Cole's opinion, many people who watch the film, they say play in and play out, it's Voorhees who is worse, that grades worse. So John Harbaugh, going into the game, was asked, could you see yourself doing a rotation with Emery? He said, yes, that's on the table. Then they start with Voorhees. Then they started switching about every two offensive plays or offensive drives. And Emery came in, and I thought it was fine. Like you said, he had the one pre-snap penalty. But I thought it was fine. There was nothing that, at least during the game, we'll find out. I know that all these guys, Coach Evans, Cole Jackson, all of them are going to do the film study, and they're going to look at every single snap that he put out on tape. Yeah. So it'll be fun to look at it. But knee-jerk kind of reaction. There was no like, oh, in his first snaps of the NFL, he got Lamar Jackson blown up. Or in his first stat like, he let somebody through in the backfield and just blew up Derrick Henry or anybody else. There was nothing like that. I do feel like the very first play that he had, they try to run behind him.
He missed his block on the first snap. Yeah.
Yeah. They try to run behind him, and he got stuffed right away. But it was really that right-hand side that got Lamar Jackson blown up on the sack strip. It didn't come through on the left side, and he was in during that time. But there was nothing that was just like egregious that popped out at us. And so I'm excited to see some of the film study and grade that comes out on him, because you would hope if Voorhees is as bad as the grades say or as bad as the film says, then you're going to want Emery in there. And, he's only going to get better. He's only going to get better as a third-round rookie getting his first snaps after coming back from, was it shoulder surgery?
Labrum. All right. So I think that pretty much does it for that side of the ball. I mean, that was all everything. I echoed everything you just said with what I was going to say. And then I'll just throw on, if we're in the mood to throw a compliment out to 77. I thought he had a great block on the Derrick Henry rushing touchdown in the first half. So while that right-hand side, like you mentioned, blew up the play, led that turnover in the first half, right-hand side between Rosengarten and Fa'alele. For the most part, they got the job done tonight, and it was just a self-inflicted wound type game in other areas that wasn't necessarily on them, turnover in and turnover out, but looks like you got something else on King.
Yeah, just, I'm sure, again, he's not celebrating this for the second week in a row. Last week, he leapfrogged, I think, 3 or 4 players on the all-time career rushing list. Tonight, he leapfrogged Jim Brown. I mean, that's an iconic name right there. But he's passed Jim Brown in the all-time rushing yards. Jim Brown was at 12,312 in the moment. Derek got to 12,328, and then he added some. So there was that. And then also the broadcast kind of highlighted the change in how he's been carrying the football, because he obviously had those fumbles early in the year and hasn't had any in weeks, in months. And so they were showing, like in week 1, look at the way he was carrying the ball. First of all, he had a sleeve. He just doesn't have a tight grip on it. And the one to the right, which shows what he did tonight, there is no sleeve. He's got those 5 points of contact. Like there's no getting the ball out there, where it's like it's very loose in the first one. Now, obviously they're cherry picking certain pitchers or whatnot, but I think they're just emphasizing that he has changed the way he's carried the ball, and so that's why you're seeing less fumbles by him. It's just too bad that there were 5 other turnovers from other people tonight.
All right, there you have it.
So that's the end of my offensive notes there.
I think so. Pretty thorough. Let's shift to the defensive side of the ball, shall we? So 32 points is what Cincinnati was able to put up. You cut the turnovers in half, and you wonder what that number looks like. Again, this was a Ravens defense that stood tall, what felt like time and time again, allowing this not only game to feel as if it was in reach. It was 12-7 at the half, and you're thinking to yourself, this thing's wide open. It feels like it's a 3-touchdown deficit right now from a Ravens perspective, but they're down 5 freaking points going into halftime. And you're like, if you're looking for anything positive, why don't you just start there? And they collapsed so significantly on the offensive side of the football tonight that they put their defense in a position. It was, I'm looking for the right word, that they could not overcome the position that this offense put it in tonight. The time of possession tells the full story. This was about as one-sided gets. The Ravens rarely lose the time of possession battle the way they did tonight. The final numbers, 38 minutes and 46 seconds, the Bengals possessed the football for. The Ravens, 21 minutes and 14 seconds. That is a recipe for disaster. They also continue to have a Jamar Chase problem. There was no T. Higgins out there tonight. He was in concussion protocol, and Jamar goes 7 receptions, 110 yards. They kept him out of the end zone. He was the most targeted player by far for Burrow, 14 targets. That wasn't a surprise at all. And I thought Chido Awuzie was one of the best defensive players out there as he continues to show that he's extension eligible, Sarah, and he was a great pickup by Eric DeCosta in free agency. But when Nate Wiggins went down at halftime with that foot injury, which we now know, according to Harbaugh, is not serious. We don't know what the timetable attached to that comment is, but it doesn't appear to be season ending. Clearly, the Bengals knew what their game plan was, and they attacked accordingly coming out of the half. Yeah,
they did. I mean, it's crazy. So in that first half, they gave up a field goal on the first drive. But did the whole bend but don't break thing. Then there's that fumble on the Baltimore 2, and they have a turnover on downs. They have to defend a fumble in the second quarter with 5:46 left, only allow a field goal. And then another fumble at the 28 seconds left in the first half and only allow a field goal. And it was fumbled at the Baltimore 19. And they only made it to the Baltimore 15. I mean, it was just absolutely insane. So to me, they probably were gassed, but to your point, I think the bigger problem was that Nate Wiggins went down. Having them both together was a problem. They probably would have gassed out a little bit anyway. But like, for example, so here's what happens. And this is why, like, if you give them a week, they'll figure this out. But when you have Nate Wiggins in there, a guy that you fully trust on the outside, along with other guys that you fully trust, Chido Awuzie had a game. He had himself a game tonight. But so you're still trying to use Kyle Hamilton as a pass rusher. That's really what's helped this team by manufacturing it with him along the line of scrimmage or close to the line of scrimmage. So with him out though, like here's one play that was just like they took Kyle Hamilton out of coverage because they wanted to go send a blitz. I think he went in, and I think Marlon Humphrey went in too. This is on the Yosevis. How do you say his name? Yoshevich?
Andre Yoshivas.
Yoshivash. Thank you. I'm going to call him Andre. And so on this play, they have Roquan Smith dropping back in coverage against like a legit wide receiver. There's no way Roquan was going to keep up with him. As Jonas Schaefer points out, this wide receiver has 4.43 speed. Like you can't do that. But they were trying to manufacture some things with Kyle Hamilton. And when you have in your full set of guys with Nate Wiggins, then you can move guys on the inside on that linebacker position. But it's just like, there's no way Roquan's going to guard that. You can't put Roquan against a wide receiver that plays 4.43 or runs 4.43 40. And so I just don't feel like the Ravens were quite ready to know how to adjust with Wiggins out. They'll have 10 days to figure it out if Wiggins can't be back. John Harbaugh said, he doesn't know they'll be back for the next game. So I don't know when that will be, when he will be back, but they will need him back. I just don't think there's any coincidence, and I don't think it was just being gassed out. I don't think there's any coincidence that the first time they scored their touchdowns was when this man was out.
And that's not to say that Nate was perfect, right? But that's the part of the deal. You live.
Mm-hmm. Well, none of them are perfect, yeah.
But when it comes to cornerback play in particular, you're out on an island. You're fearless. You want to travel. Ravens don't do a lot of traveling. Nate wants to travel every single play with every single week by week number one opposite pass catcher. And you appreciate that about him. You appreciate that after a pass breakup on Jamar Chase that he came up talking junk and those two are going after each other. You appreciate his makeup speed. You appreciate his fearlessness, right? Because that's what it takes at the cornerback position. They're wired differently, and he is wired the right way for the position that he plays at the highest of levels. You want to criticize Zach Orr tonight when it comes to the lack of pressure that they were able to generate, then that's fine. To me, it is as simple as this was a Cincinnati team, Sarah, because of the Ravens' turnovers, that logged 80 plays. You want to know how many plays the Ravens ran tonight?
Yes.
57. They ran 57 plays. I already mentioned the time of possession dichotomy. It's as simple as that. I know it's high level, like that's a high level observation, and you're more into the weeds there, right? With the Roquan play. You don't want him defending one-on-one without any help on the back end from Malachi, a guy that runs a 4-3. But it is as simple as that. 80 plays to 57. They get dominated in the time of possession. Ravens defense stood tall more often than not tonight. Yes, you want them to have more of an answer for Jamar Chase. They don't. They don't consistently have an answer. That's on the staff.
Well, nobody does. Listen, Jamar Chase, it doesn't matter who you're playing against. Jamar Chase is going to get his. I thought the defense was, overall, it wasn't like, what was it last year when he had like a gazillion touchdowns and there was no stopping him? He had like 2 80-plus yard touchdowns. Like I felt like, again, against Jamar, they played reasonable, about as well as you can expect against somebody like him, who's probably the best receiver in the league.
You keep him out of the end zone. But on a night where you don't have T. Higgins, it's like, man, there were so many continued plays where Jamar gets his. But you know what? To your point, that happens week in and week out for the guy. He's coming off a 1-game suspension. I'm sure had a chip on his shoulder. Bottom line, the bottom line here is that the Ravens defense, aside from the pressure that disappeared, the pass rush that disappeared as it was really starting to round out into form over the last few weeks since Draymond Jones' arrival, that's a disappointing aspect of tonight. Overall, we know why this defense had its back against the wall, and I think we've pretty much milked that thing, throughout the course of tonight's live stream so far. So, our point's been made there. Other defensive nuggets.
You asking me, or do you have some?
Both.
I just want to shout out Chidobe Awuzie.
Yeah, he deserves a shout out.
Yeah, I thought he played well. He had that pass breakup on a deep shot for Jamar Chase. Speaking of Jamar, I thought Awuzie, was there. Where I'm trying to look at my other notes for him. I mean, there was just several times where it was like, dang, Cheeto was right there again. There's like 2 or 3 plays where it's like, dang, Cheeto was right there. And whether it was Jamar or somebody else, it's just like, what a great addition he has been this offseason when, we kind of talked about it when he was signed, but then they signed Alexander and then he got all the notoriety and all the spotlight and all of that. And then you come back and you're like, man, it's Cheeto. Cheeto here up against his former teammate stepped up. Yeah. He stepped up and then he went out for a concussion protocol around the same time that Nate Wiggins went out with his foot. It was good news that he came. Yeah. It was good that, he was able to come back in.
Yeah. So 2 pass deflections, both of which came on 3rd down. To your point there, he's just timely. He's a timely player. He's physical. He's technical. Sarah, how about the one on Jamar that you just referenced where, much like Brandon Stevens last year, had his back turned, but yet he makes up for it with an unreal level of expertise at the catch point. And that's where Brandon really struggled, right? When at the catch point, when Brandon would lose vision and sight of the ball, which is difficult, it's such a technical thing, Cheeto finds a way, whether it's hand usage, timing, body control, you name it, to hang in there. He is phenomenal at the catch point, and that's a bang play with Jamar Chase. Heck of a play by him. He has been easily, I think, when you look at Eric DeCosta's offseason, and we will in the coming months, and it won't all be pretty. That's certainly one of the positive acquisitions.
I'd also say Kyle Hamilton, we were nervous about his health coming into this. His ankle was indeed heavily taped, but he was still playing like Kyle Hamilton. Yeah. He got a sack, right? He got a sack on Burrow on one of those safety blitzes. He just was everywhere again. He had pressure.
I don't think it was actually I don't think
was it not Kyle?
He was ready. I don't think they gave it to him. Marlon had one on the DB, and that was the only one of the night on the DB blitz.
Okay, so it was for Marlon.
Yep.
Yeah.
And by the way, that was his first full sack since 2022, which would have been, I think that was Mike McDonald's first year as DC.
Ooh, that's been a minute.
So good for him.
That's been a minute. Yeah, good for Marlo. Although I felt like Marlo got cooked on a few plays.
Oh, with Jamar, he really struggles against Jamar.
Yeah.
And again, a lot of DBs do. And continue to reiterate that.
But I do think Nate was playing better against Jamar. Jamar was still getting a couple, but I do think Nate was playing better.
He was getting his early and often. But you do, to your point a minute ago, you do wonder if Nate stays in that game in the second half, what does Jamar's overall count look like statistically? But you were going down the avenue for Kyle. I thought
Kyle, was still playing well. He did get that one touchdown scored on him, but he was in great position. Like, was it Gesicki who just had this phenomenal one-handed catch?
No, it was it was their other Tanner Hudson. That was an unbelievable one-handed catch from Tanner Hudson. It reminded me of the AFC Championship touchdown. It was completely different play, but similar in the sense that Travis Kelce in the AFC Championship scored on Kyle. It was like a one-on-one. And you just could almost tip your cap to that kind of level of technical expertise. And the same thing, that ball was only where the ball placement from Burrow. And by the way, speaking of ball placement, that deep shot to Jamar Chase that went for 43, what else can Marlon do there? I mean, that was beautiful ball placement, unreal concentration from Jamar on that play. But anyway, where I was going with Tanner Hudson was that there was just not a whole lot that Kyle could do there.
No. I mean, I felt like he was in the right position, but not a lot. But point being is, like, I was nervous about how he would look, knowing the reports that were coming out of practice, but I still feel like he was Kyle Hamilton.
Yeah, and you want to know what the play of the game was, though, for me, was I think his pass breakup on 4th and 2, when turnover on downs on Gesicki. He was right there. I mean, he was in on that. And so, meaning not in on the Gesicki target. I'm talking about affecting Burrow. and that pass in his sight line. And it just speaks to how impactful he is up at the line of scrimmage. Like we say, we probably sound like a broken record when it comes to that. So good on him.
Special teams notes. Or do you want to get to super chats first?
Yeah, I'm just looking through the rest of my defensive notes. You mentioned the Travis Jones kind of last second, last ditch effort there to force a fumble and recover it as well, showing some elusiveness there from big number 98. He popped up.
Sorry, I thought you finished it. Go ahead.
Well, like we talked about this week, Travis popped up with that ankle, right? So it's good to see him out there gutting through what I'm sure he's far from 100%, much like he was last year. And then, you have a note on Malachi. And again, we referenced Malachi on the wrong end of, you mentioned that Roquan Smith play where he's dropping back in coverage with a guy that runs 4.3. That's not a formula for success. He had no help. And I think Malachi's got to be there with Yoshivash. So, but you had a positive note though on.
No, I think Malachi forcing had a good tackle on 4th and short. He also what happened there? I think there was a defense pass interference or something, but Malachi had made a great play and was like pounding his helmet. I don't think it helped in the long run, but he just continues every week to look more comfortable. He's able to anticipate more where he wasn't as much in the first couple of weeks as a rookie. I just think he continues to grow and get more confident and show a little bit more swagger out on the field.
Looking through everything else to make sure we're pretty good here. John Jenkins had a defensive holding on Bengals opening drive, which wiped a Malachi Starks tackle for loss where he shot out of a cannon to make that tackle. So that was impressive. TJ Tampa was out there when Nate went down almost immediately. Flag. Was this what you were referencing, the pass interference? I don't know if we've mentioned that yet, but that was pretty much textbook pass interference there on TJ Tampa. So he's got to clean that up. And excuse me, I think that was it. Special teams, I don't have much. And I referenced it earlier on real briefly that when Jordan Stout was backed up in his own end zone, literally literally almost underneath the uprights and still booms it 60 yards. Like, come on, man. Like, this dude's unreal. He's having a heck of a season, and he's a contract player. He's a contract year player. So good for him. He's going to make some money this offseason.
Absolutely. Puncher money, but money.
I was going to say. Christian Almgren, and we're going to get some super chats here in closing in a second. Richard Harris, thank you both for believing in what we're building. Happy Thanksgiving to you guys. We appreciate the support that you give us on a consistent monthly basis through Patreon. You guys can visit patreon.com/RavensVault podcast if you're interested in learning more in terms of what we're offering here inside the channel. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you. Where did we leave off? Goodness.
I think Quasi had just told you how to pronounce his name. So I think it's this one.
All right. John's back. And he wants to talk about Shedeur. Having Sanders doesn't mean he takes over, but what it does is puts pressure on Lamar and gives us another option. Plus, imagine he wins a couple games while Lamar is out. And what do you get for him? Oh, boy. Quasi is back.
Says Qua.
He was correcting me because I said Quay. So you had it. It's
Qua as in Quattro. Yes. Quasi. Got it. The goal is the chip, not just the playoffs. The fact that we're on the outside looking in tells you we aren't a Super Bowl team.
PW Traveler, what's going on? Thankful I'm a Ravens fan, but not thankful for that performance. They burnt Thanksgiving dinner. Hope you two enjoyed Thanksgiving otherwise. We certainly did. Appreciate that. Captain's here again.
You said Ronnie kind of called out the game plan, basically said they should have been running the ball more. I agree, he says.
And Jackson, it's simply embarrassing. Only thing this team is elite at is consistently finding a new and innovative way to gift wrap the game for opposing teams. Changes have to be made at the top with Harbaugh, chokers. And Jody is with us.
Jody says Mike McDonald and Ben Johnson are proof that John Harbaugh is simply not bringing enough to the table as a head coach. I have my qualms with EDC, but he has put good enough rosters in Harb's hands. She says it's time.
Plenty of conversations in the coming months on that note. But to make it clear, I don't believe Sarah and I believe that tonight is on the coaching staff. This was about a player execution thing or lack thereof. 5 turnovers, 3 for 10 on third down, dominated, meaning got dominated in the time of possession battle, meaning the plays run, they were dominated 80-57 and ultimately put their defense in a very, very difficult spot against a team that had its backs against the wall, Sarah. They needed to win this game. And who knows? Does 9-8 end up winning this division? Who knows? But it is going to be a wild next 5 weeks in this closing stretch. We hope that you had a fantastic Thanksgiving. We appreciate you for hanging out with us late night. It's currently 1:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for those of you not watching in live formatting. And Sarah and I will be back in under 12 hours from right now, or around there, or 13, whatever it is, for our, no, it's under 12. For our Ravens Lunch Hour live stream. It'll be a Friday edition going into a weekend where we could just watch football, see how this AFC field continues to shake out, including Buffalo and Pittsburgh, and a whole lot more. Sarah, happy Thanksgiving to you. Appreciate you. Goes without saying in terms of the gratitude and everything that's made up this partnership for the last 4 years. We'll save those conversations for another day. And thanks to Mantis Sleep for the continued support of our program. If you guys want to go check them out, you can visit the show notes and use our discount code at checkout if you find something you like. That's VAULT10, VAULT10. For Sarah Ellison, I'm Bobby Trossett signing off. Ravens are back to 500, dropping this game to Cincinnati, which snaps Baltimore's 6-game, they were trying to make it 6, snapping a 5-game winning streak, and now they'll have a 10-day period to get ready for the Pittsburgh Steelers. For Sarah Ellison, I'm Bobby Trossett signing off. We appreciate you, Voltrons. Good night, and we will catch up with you in a few from right now here inside the vault.